Over the past week, I've been able to experiment with AI content generation, and I've been able to create a mini episode, if you will, just by using some of the top models that are out. You'll be surprised at some of the things that I've learned, so stay tuned to figure out how I made this scene.
I'm not wired for that kind of faith.
You think the law's about guilt and innocence. It's about process. Protecting rights. About balancing in a world tipping into chaos.
In AI purely. Well, give or take. So for this, if you're listening to this on Spotify podcast or Apple Podcasts, you may wonder what you're looking at, because you're going to hear me talk a lot about some of the stuff I'm going to be showing you on screen. So go ahead, jump over to youtube.com/JumpCutKing or go to JumpCutKing.com, get all the links, and be redirected to YouTube and watch the full experience. But of course, if you're listening to this in the car, you might be lost a little bit, but you're going to get a lot of cool techniques. I had someone who called me for an emergency and was like, hey, can you generate these crazy AI baby videos? You saw me do one, and this was a direct response to someone saying, can you do it? I was like, yeah, probably. And so, a little bit of YouTube, a little bit of research, and to be honest, just half a brain, and I was able to make these videos. And so this is an example of what those videos look like. Okay. It's not the greatest way of using AI, but it did ask the question. I have a lot of great concept stories I've been holding on to. Some are registered, some are copyrighted, and I've been trying to figure out how do I enter the entertainment market, because that's where I feel God has led me, to be able to tell stories that are going to change people's hearts and hopefully change the world. However, that's a multi-million-dollar industry. We're not even going to talk about how much money Apple spent recently on one of its largest nominated TV series, Severance. They paid a pretty penny for that. We still call it TV, but it's not TV anymore. Netflix, Paramount, and all of them, they were TV stations, but now it's online streaming web series. I just don't want to call it a web series because you'll feel like it's been downplayed, but the web series is now what's powering all of the new original Netflix content, all the original Apple TV content, etc. And so you're looking at multiple, at minimum, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The cameras, the crews, the rentals, the locations, and you're still going to spend a whole lot of money trying to tell your story. And you're not going to make it as good looking as, say, Foundation from Apple TV. I may be a little bit biased on Foundation because that's something I've always wanted to do, and Apple's doing an okay job. There are some things I don't agree with as being an Isaac Asimov reader, and I'm like, I wouldn't have done that, and you guys aren't doing this, this, and this, but it's pretty darn cool to take a for lack of a better word, millions of years, I don't know if it's actually millions of years or hundreds of years, series of books spanning hundreds of years, and make that into TV. That is a very, very creative way of doing it. So I experimented a while back with artificial intelligence, and I took a scene from an old script of mine, and I mean real old. I mean so old that the amount of grammar issues on it's entertaining. And I plugged in, I think, a couple paragraphs and a dialogue, and I plugged it into Google Vivo, which, if anyone doesn't know, Google Vivo is the artificial intelligence model behind all of the cool, crazy, TikTok, the TikTok bear guy, the gorilla, the TikTok dog, all of those kinds of AI features. Here's the problem with Vivo. Vivo takes in either a start frame or it generates its own frame, and it creates the scene. But if you ask it to continue the scene, it's not going to generate the same characters, it's not going to generate the same environment, and to be honest, what was really, really cool is kind of depressing, not to mention the amount of cost. So how AI in general works is they're all powered by usually NVIDIA core processors, unless you're Apple Intelligence, who has their own secure private cloud compute, which is specialized servers designed with Apple Silicon that have pretty much no hard drives. designed so that they operate, run the AI model, and send it to you, and then, no information stored in cloud. Theoretically, anyway. But everyone else uses NVIDIA. And here's why. They use Python and something called Python Tensor and CUDA cores. A CUDA core is a specialized processor unit that's designed to do massive mathematical calculations, used to help you get some of those brilliant lifelike gaming qualities that you see everywhere. But all of those have intensive computational components. So when NVIDIA started building these CUDA cores many, many years ago, it started to be a big thing for editing. So before Apple Silicon, it was recommended that you get a Windows PC and you get CUDA cores, NVIDIA graphics card, a decent one, and that's how you would render. Now, through my experience, I've always found, every time I build a Windows PC for editing, that the Mac would actually perform 10 times better when it was Intel. And when it went over to Apple Silicon, it was just mind-blowing how fast and stable it was. Now, saying that isn't much because Premiere and most of the Adobe products aren't very stable. I think the only Adobe product that I haven't had crash on a regular basis is Photoshop. In artificial intelligence, in neural networking, right, you're pretty much spawning, it's a very small function that has a bunch of weights, numbers, and you have layers of hundreds of these parameters. And you can get models that are 13 billion parameters. They're literally 36 gig compiled, if you will, trained models that will help produce the items. This is what Hydra actually uses, the Halo 3 model, Halo 2 and Halo 1, which were lip syncing models designed to take a frame of video and render it. And the new Halo 3 model does all of this cool extra stuff. So like if someone's talking, their hands would move with them, or paper is open, as you can see from the demo that I created. So what I did to experiment with this, these CUDA cores that we talked about are NVIDIA graphics cards and are quite expensive to run. The best graphics card on the market currently to run is about $5,000, and that doesn't even include wattage. You're going to need a whole vast amount of computational capacity. So what cloud-based solutions do is they have server farms, whether they're rented through Amazon usually, or whether they're rented through someone else, or they build their own. If you're ChatGPT, hopefully you've built your own. All of these cloud models use these vast servers that are built with either whether they use the new, it's not technically new, but the Google chip designed specifically for tensors, Google Tensor 1, 2, whatever it is now, or it's NVIDIA graphics cards, which is why NVIDIA stock is always screaming hot and graphics cards are more and more expensive every time you look at them. If you want to run these large models, you need more of these CUDA cores. And so what they do is you pay for credits for generation, or ChatGPT, my dog would like to say hi. If you're in ChatGPT, you have an unlimited request for the text models because they pretty much have them built in such a way where they don't take as much computational power. That being said, the image generation models actually take far more computational power than a lip sync model. I know, it's crazy. And so you have kind of an unlimited, if you pay for the ChatGPT Plus or ChatGPT Pro or ChatGPT Enterprise, ChatGPT Team, whatever it is, you get kind of unlimited image generation. It's great. But then when you go to use Google Vivo or use Sora, which I'll be honest, Sora during my tests was just dreadful. I'll be honest. It doesn't have a lot of the computational power that some of the other models does. It doesn't do any lip syncing, and I will add, it does random stuff. Just completely random. Unlike Google Vivo, which people are using, which actually creates its own audio. After that experimentation, I realized that I couldn't run it on my Apple Silicon yet because Halo 3 is adapted exclusively for NVIDIA. In fact, it says you need the H100 card. I assume you could run the, I think it's 5070 Super, which is like $5,000. I might be saying it wrong. And I won't even tell you how hard it is to install these open source models and try to work with Python and Python environments and try to get the Linux subsystem installed on Windows. All of these things, and it should be, enter these 4 commands and you're good, but I've found that the various different versions of updated Windows can conflict, and it'll force you to have a version of Python that's above and beyond the specifications, and you can go in and change dependencies. And if you're not a coder and you're a layman, you're never going to successfully run these models. Now, there are things called like Comfy UI, which is a huge improvement on the ability to generate some of these components. Unfortunately, you won't be able to run Comfy UI if you don't have CUDA cores. Not very successfully. And on Apple Silicon, I was able to run it, and I did some tests. And I attempted to draw images. I got an image drawn. It's great. It took 14 to 15 minutes to generate this image. It's pretty bad. And then I attempted to do video, and I will tell you, the video was really, really dreadful. It took 35 minutes, and to be honest, generated nothing usable, just with one of the models I experimented with. So I decided that I was going to use the paid route, and I was going to pay for ChatGPT Plus. So I get one image about every 3 to 5 minutes. It's not very great. So if you're multitasking, it took me 4.5 hours to do this less than 3 minute segment. Okay, it's less than the 3-page script. Not great, if you ask me. I want to just be able to continuously create and not stop. Being a video editor, being a producer is not for the lighthearted. It is a very depressing, and you will feel oppressed by technology. People are probably asking, how are you feeling oppressed by technology? This particular podcast, as anyone's wondering, there's no script. This is just me raw telling you this is my experience, and these are the things that you should know. So I decided that I was going to experiment with creating this AI. Now, I'm not going to tell you all of my secrets because I want to be able to tell some of the stories and some of the things using AI. And my concept behind it is using AI kind of as a replacement for an animation studio, not to replace animators. I know. My whole goal here is just to save money because I don't have a multi-million-dollar paycheck. I can't run around filming these glorious worlds and these stories that I have in my mind. AI is going to bring storytelling to those that are willing to use it. But I will say it does take a brain, and it does take a unique way of looking at it. Because if you go to ChatGPT right now and you ask it to generate a couple things, let's say we want it to generate, here's a character, generate them. Nope. See, didn't do it right. Prompt is very, very important. If you don't engineer your prompt specifically for what you need, it's going to do whatever it wants. Create an image of a group of characters at a coffee shop. Did it just die? I think it died spectacularly. There it goes. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and it's going to generate an image. Now, here's the problem. I didn't specify the height and width of the image. Please note, I have memory turned off for two reasons, because I have a vast amount of clients and a vast amount of things that I do with it. I don't want it to assume, and it always assumes. Like at one point in time, it assumed one of my clients' business. This was my business when I asked a question about something else, and it just went haywire. Copy the same thing, right? Kind of generating in the background. It's kind of like fake blur image in the background. And what it will do is it'll generate a small version of it. Then it's going to process that small version, and what's just adding details, uses another model to process maybe a 1080 or 720 by 1080 version, and then it's going to upscale it to 1920 by 1080 or however it goes. So here is a group of characters, right, sitting at a cafeteria. It's not quite 16 by 9, it's more 16 by 10, or 4:3. That looks weird. And I go over here, okay, so it's generating another one. So here's another group, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the first image, and that's the second image. That's a problem. No two images are going to ever return the same result. A lot of AI models have a problem with hands and getting faces right. And when I'm animating multiple frames, if it's realistic, you might see hair kind of moving inside someone's face, or you might see them sitting in a chair and all of a sudden the chair is in front of them, and it's just a weird experience. But the eye is more forgiving when it's an animated experience. So going to Japanese anime that already has a lot of people kind of like trained to feel the difference and know that it's okay if something's not perfect and the character is not perfectly right. I decided that I was going to do the experiment exclusively in an anime style. Here I'm generating a second frame. It's going to take a second. There it goes. It generates another one. But you'll notice from the look as it's generating, it's a different color. It's just, it doesn't do consistent frame by frame. So as part of my experiment, I was like, okay, what can I do to make this a more consistent process? Let's think of an animation studio. Literally, pulled a bunch of YouTube videos, pulled up a bunch of notes on what animation studios are, and thought of it kind of like a production studio. If I have a group of people, and you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, I'm going to not tell you, hey, do me an entire series and give it to me tomorrow. See, look at that. I mean, it's kind of similar, but also kind of different. What I did is I thought, okay, let's take this into steps. I'm using notes, and I'm gonna test a bunch of prompts, and when I have a prompt that works, I'm going to save it, and I'm gonna generate with this. So what I did here is I went online, and I found character cards. I don't understand why it's an animal, but these character cards are what animation studios will use to keep kind of characters consistent. So I found two, plugged them in, and asked it to generate me a character card. All right, so your front, back, close up, and I asked it to generate that in different wardrobes. So here is the person in pajamas. Then I asked it to do the same thing for another character. Here is the judge. Pretty much what I'm doing is I'm breaking it up in component parts. So if you're programming, right, you have objects, classes, and you have different components. If you're doing a front end, HTML, you have HTML and CSS. Now, if you're in Universe App Tools, you have elements, you have routes, you have pages, and all these things kind of work together and work phenomenally. But you have to think of them as individual components. Hey, you're gonna be in my animation studio. Here's the individual component. Here's the front and back. Right, here's my character card. Okay, great. I have a script, right? It's 1, 2, 3 pages long. So now that I have a script, I now have a environment, right? So I have my two characters, Ty and Judge Tormek, and then I have my environment. Think of this as you're building on top of one block and you're building on top of another block. Here's a courtroom. I generated a bio, generate the character cards. I took the bio and I created a scene, took information from the script, plugged it into the scene, and here is my wide shot. Now that I have my character cards and my scene, I'm saying, okay, now I'm gonna generate a frame. Think storyboarding. If each scene is a storyboard, we're gonna work on it as an individual item. So here are my two characters, upload that, here's my scene, and they give them description of the shot, as much description as I can. That one didn't work, and then I found one that it generated and it works. So here is a wide shot between the two, and then this is a back shot, tight shots of the judge. So here's a tight shot, and then I noticed something, it's 16 by 10, which is what I told it to. I should have said 16 by 9. I was stupid in my head in IMAX format or whatever it is. Then it stopped generating in 16 by 10. ChatGPT doesn't actually have memory. It knows a certain amount of tokens. And so in image generation, it actually doesn't pass memory to the image generator. Sometimes it'll generate based off your previous image, but it will generate whatever it wants whenever it wants. So I have to remind it to keep it in the 16:10 aspect ratio. Here's an extreme close-up, and here's a wide. And so I plugged this into Hydra, and so I did an experiment a while back. This is very important. I know what you're thinking. You notice characters are being lip-synced together. I can't tell it, hey, use the character on the right, use the character on the left. I had to design my shots accordingly. I just kind of wanted to animate with no text, but since it's a lip sync, it's not going to do. In this case, it's lip syncing, and then I had it generate close-ups of...
Figured I'd wait for the lightning before I ducked.
...the other character. So go back to ChatGPT, and here we are. Here's the judge, and we're generating different forms of emotion. Here's a close-up. Here's a close-up where he's happy, he's leaning in a little bit. Here's a close-up where he's leaning in, he's emphatic, and he's angry, and he's, a judge. Here's my other character, right? This is him extremely angry, although in the clip, you don't actually feel that anger from the voice. And just going back and forth and generating these different shots to try to pull out what I can use. So there's the wide shot again. And then sometimes you'll notice the flag will be in wrong position, and I'll have to ask it to move the flag, and I'll have to ask, because it is like a little baby animator that thinks it knows things and knows nothing. You gotta think of it as a fifth grader. You gotta constantly remind it, constantly encourage it, so to speak, you know, just be more contextual aware, where I'll look at this and I know from a continuity perspective, here's the flag, here's the window, here's the images, and I expect them to be there. But as you notice, it's changing the images on me, and it's changing the location of items on me, and they're not being consistent, and I have to kind of constantly conform it. The best experience I found is if I provide my source material, ask it to generate a shot based off the source material, use the wide shot or an extreme wide shot as a source material to generate each individual frame. I'm kind of uploading, here's my characters, boom, 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 here's my scene, here's what I want, here's the wide reference, here's what I want you. Is it gonna create a live action sequence? No, Sora does not actually do well. That wide shot would have been really cool, but then it replicated him on the left. It's like, I could have used that really cool 3D rendering, but I can't use it because it's messed up. The background's moving, the painting's moving, and it's just, it took me a while to work with artificial intelligence to get it to generate the content that I need it to. The first lip sync here that you see, his hands are moving all over the place. So I realized that I needed to replace this shot, and here's a close-up. Problem I have with this is he's not even looking at the right character. The character's over here, but I can kind of get away with it, right? Because I have a little bit of screen direction here, a little bit, not much. I'm kind of at the mercy of it. Here are the top 5 things that I learned while doing this project. 1, AI is like a 5th grader, and its attention span is less than 3 seconds, less than 3 prompt queries. It kind of has memory, but kind of doesn't. So it's always good to start a new chat, kind of treat it more like, if people want to treat it like a conversation with a person, treat it more like a computer program. I'm going to give you this prompt, here are these characters, here are these scenes, generate this. It's the best way to use it. Treat it more like a tool than you would a conversation with a person, because it is legit a function. So in coding, if I have a function and I give it variable, I want it to output exactly what so I want to say, okay, I want you to multiply this number I provide you, the function I said 2, and it multiplies it by 2, okay, it's always in return 4. So you're kind of like narrowing down the infinite options that the neural network may generate, that AI might generate, and you're narrowing it down to these very specific, you're helping it out. 2, it is not good at batch image generation. Not good at all. I had the client that I showed you the little clip of the babies, and I wanted to generate, just upload one after the other and say, here's batch, or upload 5 of them, here you go, make it. And they're like, no, it can only do one at a time. So I opened up multiple tabs. You also don't want to overload ChatGPT and have it crash and everything. Upload an image, consistent prompt. When a prompt works, copy and paste it and store it. Put it into an Excel spreadsheet, put it into a database of successful prompts, put it into Notepad. I don't care. Whatever you do, when it works, save it. And that will prevent you from having to do all this extra work in each time and trying to retype, because you're gonna get different responses. When it works, copy and paste it. And you can do what I do. Here's my prompt, and here's the custom information that I say in the prompt. I'm going to provide scene information. I'm going to provide XYZ, and then I provide it underneath the prompt. And it actually helps. It's kind of like I'm giving a task to an employee saying, here you go, do this, perform this, and it works. Because instead of having to do too much thinking, which most employees don't do very good thinking anyway, but when you're talking about completing tasks and things, if you don't have that brain capacity, which ChatGPT doesn't. It's a 5th grader in my mind. A very advanced 5th grader in that it knows some really cool topics. It's not great to let it go about its own devices. 3, you have to cater your prompts to the situation. You can't give it too much information, because it'll then output something completely outside of the prompt, or you're kind of constraining it too much. You want it to treat it like it's creative, even though it's not really. It's generative. But you want to give it enough information to a prompt so it knows what to do, and enough information to help it. If you're asking yourself, okay, I want you to generate this, this, and this, and that's gonna be your output, instead think, okay, let me generate this item first, this item second, this item third, then generate this item. If you have a function that you need, great, here's the function. If you need an object, maybe generate the individual functions or describe in detail what you need, and it might be able to output something usable. Usually, and I will admit this, everything that I generated in AI for code had to be adapted like 90%, because it thinks it knows what's better than you in certain areas, and even though you tell it, and you have to constantly perform your prompt and constantly redo. And when they removed the edit button in some of their interfaces, you can't go back and change the prompt. If you know a prompt is successful, copy and paste it, start a new chat. I always recommend starting a new chat and turning off memory. You're starting new and fresh, treating it like a new employee, a new fifth grader that you're walking into. Hey, do this. Hey, do this. Never reference another chat, never reference another memory. Always kind of give it, here's your box, stay in the box. 4, there is absolutely no consistency in image generation, no consistency in video generation, no consistency, period. So you need to find a way to embrace generative results. So if you're a content creator creating videos, or you're creating scripts, you need to understand there's a variance to it that's going to fail. And you either need to adapt it to yourself or give it enough information to kind of fix itself. So like when I wrote the entire 5-part script Disruptor series, I actually had it conduct deep research, and I had it cite references. The moment I told it to cite references, it stopped generating or hallucinating content. In fact, with those references, I'm able to check and confirm everything that ChatGPT said. So I was able to be confident, 80-90% confident in the content that I said in those podcasts, because I had it generated with AI and we worked with it together. 5, artificial intelligence isn't bad. It's a time saver, but it's a tool more like Capka, Photoshop, Microsoft Word. It's a part of your creative mindset. It's a part of your creative toolkit. If you want to say, hey, generate me this huge thing, generate me this whole script, generate me this book, write this email, all this kind of stuff, and don't give it information, it's going to generate whenever it wants. It's not going to be the right tone. It's going to be all those kinds of things. You need to use it as kind of like a partner. It can accelerate. It can help with writer's block, and it can help with coding issues. It can help diagnose things. It can help you do research. It's a friend in the respect of being able to help you think things differently, being able for you to help problem solve. But it is not your friend to do everything for you. ChatGPT isn't designed, or even if it was, it should not be a replacement for your brain. It's not a replacement for your marketing company. It's not a replacement for an animator. It's not a replacement for a voiceover artist. I found that AI writing level is less than a 5th grader, and its comprehension level is kind of pretend up here, but if you really read it, it has no substance, and it needs that human element. The biggest caveat, and this is a bonus, biggest problem with generative AI is credits. As a professional artist, creative, marketer, content creator, I hate the limits that AI have. And the biggest limit is credits. They're charging you for the use of their graphics cards, charging the use of their high-end technology. It's expensive. And so when I go to generate it, the responses I get are great, but are costly. And so for me to do an actual television series or an episode of a television series is still multi-thousands of dollars of credits going back and forth, and not having the ability to conform the tool, not having the ability to experiment and try new things, because you credits costs, they multiply. It's like 3 to 6 seconds for a Hydra clip, but only 60% of the Hydra clips I can use. And I'm experimenting, and I'm like, that one's not telling the story. And there are some in the final version that I was like, I would redo this, but I'm running out of credits, and I might want to do X or want to do Y. So pretty much at the end of the day, generative AI is great. It's lowering the cost for creatives to go in and experiment. And it's possible very soon, in the next couple of years, you're going to have an entire series as generated AI or partially generated AI. generative AI is not bad. Yes, it may take a whole bunch of jobs, but it gives creative professionals like me that don't have multi-millions of dollars, don't know the people that are in Hollywood, would love to meet some of these executives and do experiments and to, film some of the movies and television series that God has placed on my heart that are great stories that would make you cry and make you laugh and kind of change your perception on the world, which is the whole goal of the universe, is to get you to live this revolutionary life. If I constantly say I need to make these millions, need to make these, to compete, right? And to do something that's honorable and worth doing, that results are really, really well. And even if it's $100,000 budget, AI actually brings in, if you work with it well, can probably make it possible for you to accomplish your goals faster. AI is just a tool. It's just Photoshop. And that's my 10. AI can elevate your tool set. AI can elevate your ability to accomplish something. But at the end of the day, if you're not careful, you will think you can't accomplish something because of the amount of money something costs. And I will tell you, as a strategy consultant, if you will, I tell everyone, you can accomplish anything that you put your mind to. God can give you a creative solution. And I believe God gave me this creative solution. I thought I'd share it with you. I'm not trying to hide information. It did take me a lot of time. I mean, you can try it this way. You can experiment with it. I recommend that you give it a go. But of course, I just want to show you what's possible in AI. I know a lot of the algorithm is supporting people who are talking about AI, so I thought I'd break track here and talk about how to create content in artificial intelligence. But most of it's how you treat it. And it's how you experiment with it. Here is the scene that we put together. Of course, after the scene, we'll pray together. This is the 3-minute scene. I should caution you, it does have a little bit of strong language. Again, it was partially AI generated, and in an effort to not have to do real deep character design, I kind of just kept some of that stuff in there. So this is it.
You're gonna stand there all day like you wandered into the wrong room? Are you gonna sit and act like the Lord put my faith and trust in? Some men I know can handle these 4 damned cases.
Figured I'd wait for the lightning before I ducked.
You think I'm striking you down, son? I'm trying to light a fire under your ass. Where's that cocky juror who came prancing in my courtroom that flipped the prosecution's entire case?
With all due respect, Judge, you had me a sex offender, a gang hitter, a guy who confessed before the arraignment, and let's not even talk about the girl. At Fire Eternal Light, it's already burning. I don't know if it's hell or justice.
And what if it's both? You'll get the truth who deserves your best, Ty. I made you take that oath. I made you take these clients. You sit across from a man whose eyes friend guilt? Great. You still fight for his rights, because of setting you down to let the system turn into a machine that crushes the innocent with the guilty. That's why I chose you. That's why I gave you these cases.
You want me to fight for men and women who hurt people, who admit they've hurt people.
I want you to fight, because someday you'll sit across from someone who can't. All of these cases I gave you were guilty or not. One day I might become their judge and executioner, and have to look some half-beaten down excuse for a public defender in the eyes as a possible innocent gets sent to be destroyed. The law won't care.
What if I don't want to be that guy? I'm not wired for that kind of faith. If I make a mistake, some innocent dies. Or worse, I let some depraved asshole back on the streets.
You bit the wrong down door to walk through, son. You think the law's about guilt and innocence. It's about process. Protecting rights. About balancing in a world tipping into chaos. I didn't pull your name out of a hat, son. I saw what you are. Underachieving, maybe. But only because you're afraid of what happens if you do try.
Son, the chosen one. Got it?
You're not that special, Ty. People can change things if they stop hiding behind how hard it is.
What if I fail?
You will. But if you fail because you've hesitated, because you half-assed it, that's on you. It'll be your name they remember.
You ever get tired of carrying all this weight?
Every goddamn day.
And why keep killing it?
Because someday, someone will thank me for the fight I gave when they had nothing left. And when that happens, It will make every sleepless night worth it.
I'll check the Rodriguez file again. Might be something in the body cam footage the DA missed.
That's a start. Don't be afraid of what you can be.
As you can see, it shows great promise. There's limitations. There's some cool creative opportunities. It kind of works, kind of doesn't work. It's back and forth kind of thing. It's an experiment, and it's proving that it's possible. I was limited to one character in a shot talking. That's it. That's in the 4.5 hours. Now, if I had more time and a lot more credits and a lot more, or maybe just upgrade my gaming machine to use an H100 or the 5070 Super that's $5,000, that gives you a lot of ability to use some of these open source models and build your story without credits. Not quite unlimited, because then you're paying for electricity and cost, which again is what those credits exist for. But in any event, I pray that you take this experiment as what it is. It's an experiment into AI to show you that anything is possible, that there's nothing that should be limiting you. I want you to know that nothing should limit you, that you can accomplish anything that God places on your heart. And you don't know when you're going to accomplish it, how you're going to accomplish it, or what tools you're going to accomplish it. All it requires is faith. So I want you to know to have faith today. I pray the Lord gives you a special measure of faith. We've all received a measure of faith when we were born, whether you use it to believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, or whether you don't. You're still given the ability to create. You're still given this ability, this purpose, and this design. And so I pray right now, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, that you pursue this design, that you find out that anything is possible, that you don't let your mind be conformed to having to spend millions or think it's impossible, but know that anything is possible. Jesus Christ said, greater works shall we do, because he goes to the Father, and he's going to send us the Holy Spirit. And you can't do greater works if you're sitting around in your mind and caging your mind, so to speak, and putting negative thoughts in. So I rebuke any negative thoughts, anything that says you can't do it, because you can accomplish anything that you put your mind to. And God's proven that time and time again. And I pray right now that you understand the creativity and the brilliance, that nothing holds you back. And God gives you the boldness to pursue today. In Jesus' name.